Item 42 relates to the petition of Joanne Pearson to be approved by this board or disapproved by this board to be a candidate for Election Commission District 3. So Gina, thank you for handing out certain documents. I'd like, Mr. Chairman, to give the history of this, the facts surrounding it, my research, and make a recommendation. Okay. I'm going to do it as quickly as I can. The matter involves this before us because the statute provides that candidates for Election Commission must be approved by the Board of Supervisors and then passed on to the Madison County Election Commission for names to be put on the ballot. 2 weeks ago, there were 5 candidates for Election Commission on the consent agenda. These are usually perfunctory matters, but 2 weeks ago, Walter Young Jr. came to the podium, the gentleman, right, and he made a statement to the board, made a presentation very briefly, that Ms. Joanne Pearson's candidacy was disqualified, should be disqualified by this board because her qualifying statement of intent to run was incomplete. So the board removed Mrs. Pearson's name from the list of approvals on the consent agenda. You asked me to look into it, to do an investigation, and to make a recommendation, and so that's what I'm doing today. Now, we never know how these things are going to end, so I would like to make a record of my research, my findings, and my recommendation. And I'll just go to the bottom line. I'm going to recommend to this board that they approve Ms. Joanne Pearson's candidacy for Election Commission District 3. My recommendation is that you approve it, but we need to make a record. Now, when Mr. Young stood 2 weeks ago and said that Mrs. Pearson's intent statement was incomplete, that was the basis of my research. So I want to take you through this. And Mr. Chairman, everything I read, I would like to be entered into the minutes. Okay. So if you look at this candidate for certificate of candidate petition, signatures county registry, I'll go to page 2. So this is Mrs. Pearson's qualifying statement of intent, which was filed on January 22nd, but the certification was filed by January 30th, 2024. So on her qualifying statement of intent, and these matters were the matters that were raised by Mr. Young. He said that she should be disqualified because on this petition, there are several areas that are left blank. On it, she has her name, her address, her phone number, and then at the bottom where it says, I've never been convicted of bribery, I've never been convicted of felony. But then there's a check that says, I meet all constitutional, statutory, and other legal requirements. It's dated, it's filed by January 30th by Ronnie Lott, our Chancellor Clerk. And so, based on his supposition, her candidacy should be disqualified because her qualification papers are incomplete. All right, so you asked me to look into it, and I've done this. Here are my findings. If you go to the next page, this is the petition that all candidates for Election Commission must submit. There must be at least 50 signatures from residents, electors within District 3, most of whom are in Ridgeland. On the candidate petition, it has the county, the petition, County Election Commission, has her name, and has the district, District 3. And there are at least 55 signatures which were certified by Anita Ray, our circuit clerk, as being viable electors in District 3. So if you look at the statute, which I've also supplied for you, and I would like to get into the record. So when you look at whether someone is qualified to be an election commission, you have to look at the intent, yes, the intent for qualifications, but you have to also look at what's included on petition that the voter signed to endorse her to be confirmed for that office. You have to look at both of them together. So I will say this. So even though Mrs. Pearson's first document appears to be incomplete in the sense that not everything was filled out, it did not identify the county. It did not identify the election commission district that she intends to run in. It did not say whether she had been convicted of an infamous crime, and it didn't state the date of the election. However, if you look at that first page, she did check the box that it says, I did meet all constitutional, statutory, and other legal requirements. So if she checked that box, the other two that she didn't check they're redundancies. Because if you meet all, then you met all. So I believe that the first two boxes are incomplete, but the third one covers those first two. That's the first thing. If you read the statute, which I've supplied, the statute is 2315-213, and in particular subsection 3 and subsection 4. It talks about the elements that a candidate for election commission must provide in order for the candidacy to be sufficient. You must reside in Madison County District 3. You must file all necessary paperwork of candidacy by the deadline of 5 p.m. on February 1st, 2024. You must present a petition personally signed by 50 electors in Madison County District 3 by the deadline of February 1st, 2024. You should declare your party affiliation, if any, and you must declare that you are not otherwise not unqualified to run. So if you look at both the documents together, she filed on time. She declared that she was not disqualified to run based on the felony and the rest. Her name is there. The position she's running for election commission is there in the petition. And she resides at Madison County District 3. So if you look at all of those together, I believe that is sufficient. But let's go further. Let's talk about the law. We looked at several AG opinions that interpret section 2315, 213, 3, and 4. And there are many. But I chose about 3 of them that I think are most pertinent to this conversation. If you look at the 3, which would be Martin, Clark, and White, there are 3 standards that this board should consider when they're determining sufficiency of candidacy. The first one is benefit of the doubt. If you have a doubt about someone's petition, the benefit of the doubt should be resolved in favor of the voters, because they're the one that will have the ultimate job of deciding whether somebody will be election commissioner. The second standard is strict compliance. Strict compliance means these things must be set out in your petitions, and if they're not set out in your petition, then you are disqualified automatically. And then third is substantial compliance. So these are the elements that within the petition, looking at it together in a wholesome fashion, that are beyond strict compliance, but substantial compliance. All right, so when you look at strict compliance within the language of the AG opinions, these are the things that must be set forth. If they're not set forth, then this person would not be qualified. The first is she must set forth her residency in the county and in the district. And that is set forth, in the petition of signatures. Number 2, it must be filed by the prescribed deadline. Clearly, Mrs. Pearson filed by February 1st, 5 o'clock, 2024. Thirdly, there must be a petition presented with at least 50 qualified electors. Our own circuit clerk says that Ms. Pearson submitted a petition with 55 signatures of qualified electors. In the fourth, that you are not otherwise disqualified. And she checked the box in the statement of intent. So I submit to you that all of the elements relating to the standard of strict compliance have been fulfilled by Mrs. Pearson, if you consider both documents that she submitted on the same day to Riley Lott and to Anita Ray. Now, the remaining requirements, substantial compliance, in your discretion, you have to determine based on the facts if Mr. and Mrs. Pearson fulfilled the standard of substantial compliance, which makes her enabled sufficiently to run for the office of Election Commission. And again, the benefit of the doubt is resolved in favor of the electors of Madison County. So looking at all the documents on the face of them, I believe that no voters are misled. Clearly, the 55 that signed the petition, her name is on there. The office that she's seeking is on there. The district she's running is on there. If you look at the first petition, she's not disqualified to run. And she is also qualified to the standard of mandatory things, but also substantial elements that are incomplete. But for the benefit of the doubt of the voter, I believe that is on there. Now, the final issue is a little bit of concern, and that is within the statute, it says that you have to indicate your party, that your party affiliation. It says, if any. So that means that if any means you don't have to put it there if you don't have one. Now, standing here, I assume that Ms. Pearson would be qualified as a Republican candidate. That's my assumption. Ms. Pearson isn't here, but from everything I'm assuming and the folks I've talked to, she very likely will be qualified by the Election Commission as a Republican candidate for that office. I believe that that element is one that is in the substantial compliance and not strict compliance area. I also believe that it's not your job to prepare the ballot. The job to prepare the ballot is the Madison County Election Commission. I also believe that between now and Election Day in November, if you approve this candidacy, if you certify it, if you present it to the Madison County Election Commission for preparation of the ballot, they will resolve this issue, whether Ms. Pearson has no party or if she's a member of one party. And I don't believe that's your job. I certainly don't believe it's enough not filling out a blank certifying your party affiliation is enough to disqualify someone from running for office. So, based on the research that I've done, based on talking to two very qualified lawyers who are listening to me today, Mr. Howard Brown, who is an attorney but is also, I believe, chairman of the Madison County Democratic Party. I spoke to him twice about these matters, and he may want to speak after I get through, I don't know. But I want you to know that Mr. Young, who spoke, he told us his name, but he did not say that he was a candidate for Election Commission District 3. Maybe didn't have to say that, but he didn't say that. If he had said that to all of us, maybe our antenna would have gone up. But I believe that Mr. Young was speaking to disqualify an opponent. Also, Dr. Spence Flatguard at length, he's also here. He may speak or not speak, I don't know. But it was very helpful on this with me. So I would say to you, also just before I got up to speak, Greg handed to me a letter from Carol Mann. I hurriedly read it before I got up to speak, and it is basically in favor of disqualifying Mrs. Pearson, and she sets forth her reasons. I quickly read it, and I believe it also should be entered into the record. But it covers most of the points I made. But she's also here, and maybe she would also like to speak. So, in sum and substance, you asked me to research this. I've done it. I've looked at Mrs. Pearson's intent, submission, her petition. I've read the statute. I've talked to counsel for and against this. I read the Attorney General opinions. I believe that the benefit of the doubt for any incompleteness that remains should be resolved in favor of the voters of District 3 on Election Day. I believe certainly that Mrs. Pearson has met all of the strict compliance standards necessary by the statute, and the remaining areas where they were incomplete are, if you look at the petition itself, satisfies the substantial compliance features of this, so that the voters are not misled, so that they certainly know that her name is Pearson. She lives where she lives in District 3, Madison County. She's running. They know the date of the election, and it's enough to qualify her for this position, and that is my recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. With that being said, I'm going to make a motion for approval with also to enter the information, Mike. To enter the information Mike handed out proving the point, which is these 4 documents. So that's my motion at this point. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
I heard all what you're saying, Mike. But what you saying, what you telling me to believe what you saying instead in my eyes. What I'm looking at on this here form is incomplete. And that's why we took it off the agenda last time. They had to put on that form for a reason. What county you run it in, the day of the election, the district. It's there for a reason, and it's not filled out on this form that I'm looking at right here. And I looked at it close. She did not add nothing since the last election, as far as I can tell. So it's still incomplete. That's my thought on it.
My thoughts are, as an informed voter, I personally could not go to the ballot box and check a name for somebody to represent me and run elections that can't fill out simple paperwork, because I know for a fact that a election commissioner is not a simple job. They work hard, especially on election day and the weeks leading up to election day. They need to be organized and wherewithal. That said, I personally, while the paperwork is incomplete, according to our attorney, he says that it meets the letter of the law, if not the intent.
Strict compliance.
Yes,
Yes.
and should be considered.
All right. Anything else, Mike, anything else you need
No.
to say?
No.
If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed.
No.
Okay. And also, Mike, these are the 4 documents that I asked to be entered into that motion. Are these only 4?
The letter from Mrs. Mann.
And supporting document on why she should be disqualified.
Okay, if you would,
Like it.
please bring that up. Yes, ma'am, bring that up as well. You want to get these and make sure. Do it.
This does relate to Ms. Bergansky.
Oh, Ms. Bergansky, but then, hang on, I have Ms. Bergansky and also Ms. Pearson. All
right, let me see those.
One is Ms. Bergancy, that one, Ms. Bergancy, that one, the top one, right, Ms. Bergancy.
We just
also-
want to, I want to make a motion to enter it, that's all.
I wanted that to be in the minutes in case it came out, but Ms. Pearson is for today.
Okay, is this everything you want to enter into the minutes?
I do, I'd also. like
Okay.
to enter Ms.
Okay, I got a motion to enter this document into the minutes, February the 20th, 2024.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye, all opposed. Ronnie, do you have all these 5 documents? Greg? Give that to Ronnie if you will. He has all of them? Okay, good deal.